Alright guys, as soon as I can manage it here and we're rolling again, we're going to try this again. I hope to gosh this works this time. Please let it work this time. Okay guys, let's go ahead and try this out here. Give me just a second.
Having been allowed on mainland Ansalon in years due to persecution, the introduction of good dragons, which had been practically a fairy tale by this time, this of course would imply to the reader in modern terms. It would be like the Knights of Solamnia seeing a UFO and getting it to operate for you. Except in fantasy terms the UFO is a dragon, with an eccentric personality depending on its age and color, just like the evil chromatic dragons have theirs. It was not widely known that due to the stunningly short time frame in Dragons of Spring Dawning in which the Solamnic Knights, not having been allowed on mainland Ansalon in years due to persecution, the introduction of good dragons, which had been practically a fairy tale by this time, this of course would imply to the reader in modern terms. It would be like the Knights of Solamnia seeing a UFO and getting it to operate for you. Except in fantasy terms the UFO is a dragon with an eccentric personality depending on its age and color, just like the evil chromatic dragons have theirs. Gold, silver and bronze dragons also have personalities, and they are not mounts or pets to be controlled. They will let you know it too. In the short time it took to acclimate an already proud, but extremely arrogant and inexperienced Knight of the Crown to their newly arrived dragon, not to mention the rigors of learning how to fight in a saddle, proper application of lance technique so as to not injure yourself or your own dragon in the commotion of battle, and last but not least teach a knight not to soil his undergarments through to his plate mail when he's several hundred kilometers off the ground and his dragon inverts to avoid an attacking dragon, and they wind up in a tussle. Trust me, it's extremely gory. Imagine if two WW1 SOP with camel pilots blasted each other to pieces at close range with shotguns, and then veered off to do it again. Instead it's two dragons intertwined biting and tearing each other to shreds while their exposed riders hold on and try to angle the lance, or swipe a sword at an exposed flank while avoiding a cast spell from a dragon or rider. Lost momentum either way results in dragons tumbling toward the earth while they are in the air, because fighting dragons do not hover stationary when they fight at a blinding rate of terminal velocity, as both grown dragons weighing a few tons plummet toward the earth, with their riders buckled and strapped into a saddle harness that allows the use of the lance swivel if you're lucky. Or if you're a squire with a lesser knight and dragon, a horse saddle modified to fit on the back of the dragon, and if your knowledge of securing the saddle to the dragon does not work you slide screaming off the back of the dragon, still tied to the saddle and weighted down along with the saddle in a sickening tailspin. But you won't know it because the ensuing inertia causes you to black out from the whiplash. Luckily your neck was broken before you hit the ground. Some ground forces around Sanction find your tangled corpse in the trees, still clad in Solamnic armor, which is quickly stolen by looters once they figure out how to get your body down from the trees. Most people across the continent of Ansalon are wary about seeing dragons in particular, no matter what color. At this time of the War of the Lance, knights had just as much to fear from superstitious and ignorant locals, who would go so far as to compel a mercenary spellcaster to attack the Dragonrider regardless of whether being set upon unprovoked. Knights and their dragons would be attacked if not properly introduced to a settlement. Dragons aggrieved at the loss or injury of their riders, as well as themselves, tended to become somewhat vigilante, preferring to fight and then flee if possible despite a settlement being of good alignment. Gold and bronze, as well as silver dragons, are prideful creatures, and they also demand to be respected. A callous human or dwarf attempting to walk up and address a dragon without proper introduction from his knight or squire could result in the dragon popping off a flame, just to show disdain for the rudeness. Small children and Kender are an exception to this rule, as gold and bronze dragons oddly enough are fascinated by stories told from Kender and children about themselves. Sometimes they are just as surprised as the Kender about the half-truths and myths people say about dragons in the long centuries away from the worlds of men. Kender scouts, many being from northern Urgoth, Hilo being so close to San Crist, there were no shortage of Kender volunteers, being utterly fearless, if not competent, and were of crucial help serving as liaison between the knights and their dragons in the air. Kender know maps, so atop a dragon they can sketch valuable bits of info in a short amount of time. They're not afraid of heights, or even dragons attacking the rider, and they're just spontaneous and interesting enough in their conversations about trivial things humans would find irrelevant, but which dragons are quite fond of, considering a person of low intelligence skills rather dull and not worth talking to. After being away from the active world for some time, the first dragons found the humans to be an unreliable witness to anything credible, being their lives so short, and so henceforth deferred to the elves and naturally, Fizban him being Paladin's avatar at first on advice on how to deal and interact with these human knights. The enthusiasm of the Kender was not a problem, and so it became common practice in some of the first dragon formations, a wing, to have a trio consisting of a knight, his or her squire, and a Kender, dwarf or human scout. Much like a WW2B 17 bomber crew, the three of them dragon, knight, and navigator, as a unit in the air along with the squire on the ground. Squires were also trained as ground recon to signal from the ground to the Dragonrider, and Kender making them an added ally against ground forces, as the valued recon from the Kender map makers could be of questionable value if the Kender wasn't focused enough. Another tool introduced later in the war to ensure the credibility of the Dragonrider. Commandants would have the rider or the scout carry a small palantir that functions like a magic eye, allowing the battlefield commanders to access the situation. However, using this in combination with limited telepathy to coordinate a move was impossible, if not risky, due to the chance of being intercepted by an enemy sorcerer or dragon rider. To this end, some of the northern Agothian Kender started using coded songspeak, and a variation of Gullidwarf Muffquap, as they found the colloquial references used by the Kender to describe troop movements or enemy units were indecipherable by Ancelonian dragon high lords, even if their messages or maps were intercepted either by telepathy or capture, or a Kender stupidly leaving the map out on a table. In addition, it was found later that dragons under the influence of a dragon orb were less likely to be tricked into doing something irrational if a Kender Tars actually handled the dragon orb several times, and it didn't kill him, were there to take charge and convince the dragon and the rider to land, or else avoid getting any closer to where the dragon orb was compelling them to go. If it meant hitting them upside the head with a hoopak, or pissing down the side of the dragon's left flank, just to wake them out of their trance, or from a sleep spell, the Kender may be the only hope they have in that situation. The Kender serves the purpose of engineer, top turret and navigator. Within Silver Dragon Mountain, after entering Foghaven Vale, the heroes and Tasselhoff inadvertently discovered the ancient forge used to make dragonlances. However, these were considered to be major weapons of war, and the dragons, according to Fizban, had sworn an oath to never get involved in the plots of men or elves. Silvara the Kaganesti elf was in fact a silver dragon, who had fallen in love with Gilthanas, but the fact she was a dragon meant she was partially breaking her oath by leading them to Foghaven in the first place. DM's note asterisk, this is where the story got complicated, and Margaret Weiss attempted to explain in a short story called The Tale That Tasselhoff Promised Never to Tell. In summary, when the Whitestone forces discovered the forges, they had neither the ability nor the knowledge themselves to forge an authentic Dragonlance, because IFU played the modules, and did not find Thorbidin, or reach Skullcap, or the Hammer of Korras to unite the dwarfs and save the refugees. Finding the Hammer of Korras along with the Rosilver arm will enable you to attempt to forge a substandard Dragonlance, but having that breaks the oath with the dragons. To weasel their way out of this, it was explained that the Whitestone forces did indeed find some mounted and footman lances, which were original Dragonlances. But the attempt to take the dragon metal itself from the Silver River and activate the forge was out of their capacity. In the book's lore, it's implied they attempted to make a few lances, but lacking the Hammer of Korras, or not being able to use the dragon forge adequately, it forced them to bluff at the Whitestone Council meeting, the Roz threw the DragonLance into the allegedly uncrackable white stone and split it, therefore convincing the Solamnic knights they had a chance. Unbeknownst to them in the story that Tasselhoff promised never to tell, the whole thing was a ruse and a bluff all along. According to the book, Fizban and Tasselhoff wandered around aimlessly, because Fizban's memory apparently failed him in the fact he'd cast a teleportation spell and it kept taking them back to Huma's tomb in Foghaven. Also, one of the younger knights, with the aid of Fizban and Tasselhoff, get in an altercation with a white dragon who inhales Fizban's hat and gags on it, only to spit it out, and then the knight attempts to stab the dragon with one of the newly forged lances the Roz made, and it shatters. Rather than admit this later on to the Whitestone Council, they bluffed, and with Fizban's help the Roz made a dramatic show of using an original Dragonlance to break the White Stone. This convinced the Solamnics. However, the elves under the Speaker of the Suns was not convinced. An argument then ensued about the dragon orb. In the commotion, and just as Tars had been magically charmed by Fizban to do when he found Silver Dragon Mountain, and also when he'd found the trap in the High Clerists Tower, Tars broke the dragon orb. Not knowing why, but Fizban obviously aware, he compelled Tars to break it. The elves and knights were furious. In either telling of the tale, the Roz ultimately breaking the white stone with the lance was what sealed the bluff. It was then up to Lorenar's brother Gilthanas, in a completely unrelated incident, to then go with Silvara and provide proof that the dragon eggs were being corrupted. If it's not obvious to most Dragonlance fans, the state of the plot of the books after they'd written Autumn Twilight changed drastically. TSR, with the launch of their 1983 rebranding, the launch of Dragons of Autumn Twilight in '84 was a success, and TSR had not expected the first book to do so well after they'd originally tried to hire a different author to write the books, and then when Margaret and Tracy actually struck steel. In this case, with the first book, they decided to let them have a little bit more input. But like everything else, Weiss and Hickman had to write around the constant things that TSR added into the Dragonlance canon through the modules. Dragons of Winter Night begins with a poem about feel that's an ice wall. Laurana basically becoming a warrior to kill an elven high lord. That was never shown in the book, or even the '87 comic book adaptations, except in Aftermath. This whole segment was done this way in part partially because the amount of overwhelming bullshit to connect from the modules into a cohesive story and stay true to the AD&D game, or Autumn Twilight's narrative. Fizban's bluff with the Whitestone Council and the Dragonlances are an allegory to the fact they were now flying on a dragon by the seat of their leggings, pardon the pun, towards spring dawning, with barely a cohesive way to wrap the third book up for an ending. Here goes, and it's been 40 years, so if you don't know it by now, don't do like a bewildered person at a convention said to Tracy. Stum dies, yes. So does Flint, and Raistlin turns to the black robes. Evil is a concept, your actions are subjective, and may be judged as evil by those who do not understand your methodology. As Raistlin might say. Gilthanas in his role after Winter Night barely saw anything else, which was a travesty in itself, as TSR kind of glossed over his story arc. He was essential in helping free the heroes from Toeed, and helping the refugees escape Paxtharkas. This again, however, was mitigated somewhat from the books and what the modules said. Later authors would visit Gilthanas in an alternate timeline concept in the Fifth Age books. Being an elf familiar with Urgoth, I wanted to bring Gilthanas back into the current Dragonlance projects. His Agothian accent, somewhat hinted at in the cartoon, would be used again to some humor with Astrid de Morris and Agothian Kender, as she aggravates and annoys Gilthanas in a Dennis the Menace Mr. Wilson way. Gilthanas. Gilthanas. Come back here, you silly button. Lady Laurana, your brother is not so tolerant of Kenderkin. He is not like my darling Dalamar. My Dalamar, he is sullen, but he is always thinking of many things. Gilthanas, he makes faces at me when I enter the room. I tell you, I will make him see the many Kender things I know, and he must not tell me he is smarty pants magus like Dalamar, or his shalafi as thick as his head is, and per se that dumb and tough are still good qualities for an elf. Your brother Gilthanas is still not very amicable toward your love for Tanis. Gilthanas is baby. He might be older than me and an elf, but his brain is that of a human. So jealous of things he cannot have or he does not want to wait for them. How impatient can he be as an elf? He moves about constantly like a human, go here and there, hurry and fast. Gilthanas he always in a hurry, which is very unlike an elf or kenderkin. We bide our times, yeah. What is this rushing about for human things? Nonsense, nonsense. This coming from Astrid is amusing, because Kender to their credit are like little Jack Russell Terriers, they take in their environment immediately, and vibrate. The Kender actually sitting still, or remaining motionless while engaged with talking with someone. A Kender will pace, jump, skip, waddle, or shake while constantly looking around if engaged in conversation. If fixated on something they might pause, with an intense look on their face in a zone until they are satisfied and then resume talking. Kender, like gnomes, are known to relay lots of information in a stream of consciousness and can carry on multiple conversations at once and actually insist on not interrupting that conversation with another person until they've completed their original train of thought. Speaking of elves and Gilthanas. Elves did not largely serve in the DragonStrike wings at the beginning of the Whitestone Offensive, because most of the elves important enough to be on San Crist could not afford to be lost to the unfortunate fate of a slain Dragonrider. Many Qualinesti and Silvernesti elves preferred to use griffins. As wyverns are too tactically small to fight in enclosed spaces like a city with dragons effectively. Many of the elves swore to be the last line of defense, casually telling many of the Salamnic knights in heavily accented Silvernesti common, which is a Gothian mixed with Elvish. It is good that you fight the forces of the Dark Queen, for it will give us enough time to embrace death ourselves, should your endeavors fail, but for what it is worth we are indebted to brave crazy humans, who wish to fly atop dragons born from eggs hatched before your grandfathers were born, to help elves who will live long to honor you in song and be eternally grateful to your descendants, until we conquer them. Southern Urgoth and North will once again be elven lands as they once were in the Age of Light. They will be whole again someday under the banner of Sylvanost and kin. For this time, however, you are human and you will have passed on by then. In the wake of this we shall choose to not make war on the humans of Abanansinia, Salamnia and San Crist. Forbid that should we ever be at conflict, we elves can simply let time and age do what armies and swords cannot. Your short lives are of no detriment to us, or the dragons it seems. We too shall endure this. The squires, knights in training, attended to the fitting and repair of the lance and saddle, as well as feed and water the dragon according to their demands, and some gold and silver dragons are certainly prima donnas in this regard. This duty was shared with the scouts, and so the team of 4 configuration worked well. The knight, of course, was expected to provide an equal amount of effort on his team by one, making sure his duty as a knight to protect his dragon and his squire and scout. I pledge my life, gods of Kryn, to make every effort to protect your child, squire and scout. This mantra is recited by both the dragon and the knight as they depart for every formation, or assemble for a major battle. The reference of child being both the dragon and the knight as well as the squire and scout. The scout's role was as navigator, and the person who often was a lookout, an extra set of eyes for the Dragonrider, because at that high up the wind is deafening and he might need a hoopak shot to keep an attacking rider away. Or a white or red robe mage rode with him just to buy some time, if he was riding with him. Some saddles did not have the 2-seat configuration, because smaller dragons cannot carry the extra weight. Tars and Flint allegedly rode into a battle on a saddle designed for one, but Flint being a dwarf and Tasselhoff a Kender, they were small enough to fit on one saddle. To this end the knights themselves would have been forced to keep the assembly of the dragon forces somewhat secret, until Laurana made her debut as the Golden General. The knights themselves, one not accustomed to using the newly made dragon lances with efficiency, remember to imply to players that actual Dragonlances are like nukes. Rare as hell and not easily replaced at the corner market dash, unless a Kender borrowed it, and I sort of left it there because he or she got distracted and the store clerk thought the lance wasn't mine anyway to take care of. And I told him to shut up, fat human. It was so, and Kender could still serve as squires, and what would he know anyway, because Dragonlances are still secret. Shut up human, you smell like a forge and sulfur despite not working around metal, wait. That's odd for a huntsman, Draconians have spies. Hey, that's my pouch, and holy gods, you just changed your forms. You're an Aurak. That's why I smelled sulfur. His. And Sivak. You're all Draconians. Guards, to arms. Bring it, you scaly cur, and take my blood across your blade to the Dark Queen if I lose, for I will present the dust of your companions in an ale stein to my commander, as there will be nothing of yourself left after the wisps of your destroyed corporeal body revert to lightning to bounce about chaotically, hoping you'll blast everyone in your death throes to cinders. Volo flashes her dual fist daggers, and while still holding her daggers tosses a small bag about the size of a beanbag into the air and kicked it in lieu of using the hoopak to throw it at the nearest Draconian, which happens to be the insidiously dangerous hooded Aurak merchant and the huntsman who turned out to be a winged Sivak. Her endeavor is ill-conceived as kicking the small packet of shimmerweed dust in Jites the flashbang. Think a snapcracker, or think cap gun rolls as a kid when you smacked a roll with a hammer. The ensuring flash from the snapcracker provides just enough light to the shimmerweed dust to cause it to ignite, and the ensuing light causes confusion, and shimmerweed, as it is known in the Dragonlance compendium, is a very volatile plant if not collected properly. In this case it buys enough time to stun the attacking Draconians and get ready for the next round. That is if she hasn't been blinded herself. She's fighting an Aurak and a Sivak as well as several bars. That combination alone can kill an entire party in seconds. Volo herself has close to 30 or 40 plus years leading up to the War of the Lance to learn about these newly created Draconians emerging during the early years. So she knows what to look for. The result of a dying Aurak Draconian, which is actually more dangerous than you realize. Auraks are gold dragons corrupted, are insane spellcasters, but speak in soft-spoken dulcet tones in a matter-of-fact way, as they disembowel you or burn you to ashes with a powerball. Sivaks dash, the only ones with functional wings, being shapeshifters, revert to either the form of the person they have slain, or upon their death, they take the form of their slayer for 3 days, in which after the body burns to black soot. For easy reference, remember upon death, bars turns to dust after first turning to stone, and potentially falling on you if you are a Kender. So watch out and don't get your weapons stuck. Bozak, their scaly flesh crumbles right off their bones still standing, but watch out, they vibrate and then explode. And no, you might think it looks cool, but trust me, it isn't when it can send potential pieces of debris into your party causing damage, and a trip back holding a damp rag to your head to stop the blood until we can get back to camp to a healer. Kapaks turn to nasty bubbling goo and slime that will melt stone and skin alike if it lingers on you for too long. But oddly enough, if it's wet or raining more often, the addition of water, salt water, in particular, will cause the remains to dissolve into a harmless stinking puddle that fades within hours, leaving only a nasty after smell of sulfur and hot metal lingering in the air for a few days. The first Draconians to be encountered were the stupid Bars and the cruel Bozak, who had become shock troops for Takis's army. They first appeared around the shores of New Sea and the swamps of Zacht-Saroth some 30 years before the events of the War of the Lance. At that time, hidden away underground in the depths of Zacht-Saroth, a steady stream of unwary explorers and Kyushu aimlessly wandered into its depths, unknowing that death on black wings waited for them. Kisant was appointed by the Dark Queen to guard the area of Zacht-Saroth near Miss Hakel's temple. The Queen herself, or even her Minans, unable to move onto its grounds. If they had, they would have found the staff and gotten someone to destroy it long before Riverwind would have ever found it. However, Volo recalls actually being in the temple of Mishakal many times and never seeing a statue, or a staff, or anything remotely like it. It was if almost the staff had appeared to Riverwind shortly in the opening days, uncalculated by anyone other than the luck of the spontaneity of meeting them and Fizban at the inn. With this in mind, it was always wondered as to then why agents of the Dark Queen weren't smart enough to go back and eliminate ANY of the companions. Why? Because it seems only mortals can travel time or move paradigms. It's the only thing apparently the characters have over the powers of the gods. An idea for a one-off DragonLance Elseworlds concept loosely following the plot of the Terminator. Except nothing dead can travel time, so in DragonLance terms, they send a golem, or magic assassin, like a shape-shifting Sivak, to kill one of the heroes preemptively, before they can interfere with the Dark Queen's plans. You've been listening to KRYNN Barlifor Kendakin Radio, broadcasting from the moonins of Hilo Citadel to the muddy banks of Barlifor Bay, Eliho.
Alright, y'all. Now, I am very well pleased with that. I like that. Okay, guys. I had to roll it again for a second, and it was kind of touch and go at the moment. But if you'll just bear with me just a second, I'll roll it out with just a little bit of DragonStrike, and I think I'll go ahead and port this one over to YouTube, and we'll have us a nice little segment. All right, hold on just a second here, guys. Go ahead and get you something to drink, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, hold on just a second, and I'm going to get this to switch over. All right. All right. when I can no longer use this software, and I bet you couldn't hear a damn thing I was saying while I was playing that game. But I think like what I was saying, I like my damn stride screen. Alright guys, thank you all for tuning in. I think we're okay. I'm going to go ahead and port this over to YouTube. We've been on for an hour, and this is a damn good stream, so I'm right well chuffed with it. We'll go ahead and roll it out here. Okay, guys? Alright, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me get my shit together here, guys. Hell, I didn't even know my mic was clipped off. You could hear the game audio, but I don't know if you caught any of those little tidbits. Oh, boy. That's alright, though. Hell, we got most of the game information. And as long as we got that, we're okay. What else did we have? One more thing before I leave here. Oh, yeah, I calculated the different types of Thaco. I learned one the other night, and I know there's a standard way that people have been doing it for years. It's not the way that I do it because, one, I don't use the fog of war element, and two, I still do the adding and subtracting simple math. The other one's basically just let the DM look at a table, and he don't really do any adding or subtracting. They don't make the players do any adding or subtracting. It's kind of lazy. So, to that end, you can do the Thaco minus die roll equals armor class hit method. Okay? That is basically you take your Thaco minus your die roll. Okay? Once you've got that, you add your modifiers to that roll. Like +2 for strength bonus, +1 for a magic sword. Okay? It increases your total. Okay, so say if you had a roll of like 12 and then you add that shit to it, 13, 14, 15, it increases it to like 15. And I think it's like the Thaco is at, I want to say maybe 10. I think it's supposed to be. So if it's more than, I do believe, you check the number, it means that it hits an armor class of, what is that? Shit, they had the damn, I'll have to get out the fucking book again. I got confused again because I was looking right at it. Son of a bitch, I do that every fucking time. I can tell you all right now, I'm extremely dyslexic with fucking numbers. It happens to me so many damn times. I know, me try to be a fucking DM and be dyslexic. Look, storytelling-wise, I'm okay. Math-wise, I can function, but like I said, I can get it right. For the sake of everybody, let me bring a fucking calculator, for fuck's sake, and keep it with me. Alright, for the sake of everybody, don't make me try to do it in my head, because a lot of times I fuck up and I get it wrong, like everybody else. And I don't do my finances with pen and paper. I know how to add and subtract, don't get me wrong. But if I have it with a choice, I usually make sure that I get a calculator and do it right. Okay? Alright, you got your initiative there. And then, where the hell's it at? Alright, the combat sequence. You got a hit roll table, okay, which is the basic D&D. Let me find the Thaco. Where's it at? Okay. This one here, okay, the way it describes it, you're using the Thaco, okay? Like the earlier example, say he's got a 2-hit armor class of 19, okay? Yeah. When a fighter attacks, player rolls a d20 as usual. Then any combat modifiers are added, like bonuses for magical weapons or ability score adjustments. And then finally, the defender's armor class. Yeah, that's right. You add the armor class to it. It was kind of fucked up. I was like, what? You add the defender's armor class. When I see the thing about adding the armor class, the DM is the only one that knows that. Okay? In old D&D and as like in AD&D, okay, if you're not telling them the armor class, basically what you're doing as a player, all you're doing is taking your Thaco and rolling it against a die roll. Okay, and usually that'll give you a 2-hit number. But then you're having the DM use the fog of war aspect, and he tells you whether you hit or not. He doesn't let you look at that AC. Okay, he can give you a target number or a target to roll, but other than that, no. I will discuss the many different methods of THAC0. I wrote up a whole paper for that damn thing, but the thing about it is, it's nonfiction. I got to make sure that I got the fucking math right so I don't look like a complete fucking asshole. And you do have to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure you carefully cite your sources and all that shit, with nonfiction. Otherwise, you're just a fucking shitty journalist. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to attempt junior journalism if, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. In most cases, I'll get at least 3 sources. I'll try to cite the sources. And, Bob's your uncle. You do your little thing that you're supposed to do. Most people with a modicum of common sense usually do. It's not that damn hard. You learn this shit in fucking high school and grade school if you've got any worth to you. Okay? Alright, or college, whatever, community college. It helps. Alright, guys, hey, we're going to get into some more D&D soon, but like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's called the Dragonriders Companion. We'll develop a little bit more on that. Like I said, go subscribe to the DragonLance Saga channel. Subscribe to anybody that's doing some Dragonlance content, guys. Help them out, okay? Spread the word that's Dragonlance, regardless if they're doing 5e, AD&D2e, whatever. Help each other out. It's not about being right. It's not about being first. It's just about the love of Dragonlance, okay? All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. As you can see, guys, I am a Dragonlance fan, okay? That's never going to change. And AD&D2e, forever we will be. Okay. Alright, guys. See there? That's my method of choice right there, y'all. Okay, y'all. Be good, and we'll holler at you soon. Okay? Yada, 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 yeah. Alright, y'all. Trying to get my camera to stand up there. Alright, y'all. This is Engine Joe. Y'all roll on.